What's going on YouTube? My name is Gurnad Jahal and today we're going to talk about how much money do I actually need to start investing. So maybe some of you think you need this much money. Today we're going to cover this topic and we're going to cover how many people actually invest and what keeps people from investing. So let's start it. I want to recommend you check out this Forbes article that I linked in the description. So let's start off with this. So there's a Gallup poll that shows that 54% of Americans invest in the stock market, and before 2008 it was 62%. So what this means is that 46% of people do not invest. Also, what's interesting is that even if people invest, they have to know where they're putting their investments and if they are actually making a significant contribution. So looking at this Forbes article, let's talk about the reasons why people don't invest. And this is also the case for some of my family members as well. So I think this is a great learning opportunity for young people to learn about investing and to dispel some of the myths. So myth one is investing is risky. Actually, this is true. Investing is sort of risky. You have to realize that you can lose all your money. But generally, if you're putting your money in good companies and you're doing it for a long duration of time, you generally will have positive results. So the stock market kind of goes like this and then crashes, then goes up, then crashes. The worst mistake you can do is take out your money when the economy crashes. If you take out the money when the economy crashes, you're actually selling your shares at very low prices and the economy always recovers. Or at least for the case of the US economy, this is true. And if you look in the S&P 500, the top 500 companies in the US, generally they've always increased in value. And it's important to know some companies go in, some companies go out. But generally the economy grows more and more over time. Myth two is, I will lose all my money.
No! Hey Gurnad, have you seen my money? Where did it go?
You have to be diversified. Let me repeat, you have to be
diversified.
So the reason why you have to be diversified is that if you lose money on one stock, your whole portfolio doesn't just crash. You have many other stocks that will balance it out. And no one is going to be a perfect stock picker. So just letting you know, even the best hedge fund managers cannot perfectly pick stocks. So next time someone says, don't invest in stocks, you will lose all your money, just remember, you have to be diversified and you also have to know where your money is going in investments. Though if you pick speculative companies, you're more likely to lose money. So following the news, those hot topics every single day, oh, this stock is going to rise like 200% in the next 5 years. Just be very, very, very careful before you put your money there. So just invest in good companies that you did research on. I realize that this is a lot easier said than done. Also, going off that, in March 2009, the stock market crashed 54%. This is a huge difference when it comes to what you had before. And it's important to know that the stock market recovers. Just wait and hold on while it goes back up. That is very, very important, and I will explain what to do in these situations. So imagine the stock market crashes like this, and then it will eventually recover. You want to continuously keep buying stocks, even if it's high right here, and then it crashes. It's going to be this, let's say you start off $100, and then it becomes $90, the stock per share, then 80, 70, 60. You want to keep buying stocks as it's going down if they're good companies. And when it rises, you're still buying stocks 70, 80, 90, 100. Every stock you bought during the downhill and the uphill part is all going to be priced $100 later. So this is how people end up with a lot of money. Actually, the people who invested in the stock market crash in the last 10 years, they quadrupled their money by now. But you cannot predict the bottom. So just be very careful. It's better to be consistently investing than just predicting and timing the market. There's something called timing the market versus time in the market. And generally, time in the market wins. Third myth, it is way too complicated to invest. Actually, there's something called ETFs. ETFs are a group of funds that can model different countries' stock exchanges. So for example, it can model the S&P 500, the Dow Industrial, the Nasdaq. You can also model certain sectors. You can also model large cap, mid cap, small cap stocks. So this is very useful because an ETF essentially is a basket of stocks. And let's say you buy an S&P 500 ETF for about $200 or $300 depending on who the provider is. If you look into the S&P 500, you're basically buying a few dollars of Apple, Microsoft, Unilever, Johnson & Johnson. When you combine all these, you have a very well diversified portfolio and it minimizes risk. And also beating the returns of the S&P 500 is actually quite difficult in the long run. Also, if you don't want to do ETFs, there's also mutual funds. Mutual funds and ETFs are a bit similar, but there's different requirements in each. But one thing I will say is most ETFs are actually much cheaper in expense ratio, which I will talk about in another video. Myth 4, it's too time consuming. Actually, you can invest in ETFs like I mentioned earlier, and you'll be diversified, and also you don't have to constantly check your stocks. So you don't have to constantly keep researching about what is going to be the next stock, what is rising out of the S&P 500, what is coming out of the tech sector, what is a growing mid-cap stock. I will talk about small, mid-cap, and large cap in another video. Also, you can do automatic investing with certain brokerages. So whenever a stock goes down, you're also investing in it. But one thing I will say is you have to invest in the long term. You cannot invest in the short term. For example, there's two words called day trading and swing trading. Day trading is basically you buy a stock in a certain part of the day and you try to sell it at a higher price during a later part of the day and you make profit on the difference. This is actually very risky for beginners. And there's something called swing trading. Swing trading is basically like you buy a stock and then a few months later you sell it and then you buy it again, but you're basically trying to buy low, sell high, which is actually quite difficult. You never know. If you look at like Tesla, for instance, no one could have predicted that Tesla would have shot up from $200 to $700 to $900 in a matter of 6 to 8 months. So in summary, ETFs can actually reduce the time you spend on looking at individual stocks, and you should only invest in stocks that you want in a long duration, at least for beginners. Myth 5, I need to know a lot about investing. Actually, you don't have to know as much as like the hedge fund managers, but being consistent in very well diversified companies will actually still give you a very stable return. And you could always invest in an ETF. And what's very important is that you don't have to know every small detail, but I would recommend looking at the balance sheets and income statements during the earning reports. And there are robo-advisors now that will create well-diversified portfolios for you. So you can just contribute money into those portfolios and not have to pick individual stocks, and it will diversify between large cap, mid cap, and small cap stocks, international stocks, and also domestic stocks. And it can also put money into bonds if you want safety, instead of putting all your money into equities, which are considered stocks. Okay, myth 6. This is actually why I wanted to create this video. So myth 6 says you need a lot of money before starting to invest. Actually, 20 years ago, this might have been the case. You might have had to deposit $5,000, maybe $10,000 in order to create an investment account. And after that, every time you wanted to go and do a trade, you might have had to call your broker and said to the broker, hey, can I get 20 shares of Apple? And the broker would have been like, yeah, sure, I can give you 20 shares of Apple. So, yes, it was actually quite expensive. So investing was mainly for the rich if you look at it 20, 30 years ago. But this day and age, investing is very easy for the young generation. So there's apps like Robinhood and M1, which I will show you later in this video. You can actually invest for just a fraction of $1. And this is very important because now even small amounts of dollars that you put in will still grow over time. You don't have to wait to get like $100, $200, $300 in order to buy a share. And I just got off the wait list for fractional shares for Robinhood. So this is actually a very new feature. I've used M1 in the past, But what's interesting about Robinhood is you can buy Berkshire Hathaway Stock A option, which is actually over a $300,000 stock. So I'll show you how I got a part of a $300,000 stock on my Robinhood account. Also, these brokers are commission free, so you don't have to pay for each trade. Whatever money you want to put, think about it 10 years from the future as if you want to take it out, or much longer. And I think this is a very important mindset to talk about. Whatever money you put into the stock market, you have to make sure that that money is not going to be used in an emergency. Yes, stocks are liquid. We all know that. You can just sell it whenever you want as long as someone can buy it or you can place the sell order. Also, if you have a well-diversified portfolio, it's actually going to help you more than it's going to hurt you. For instance, if you lose your job or etc. People who do not have investments and they lose their job, they might not have enough to support themselves during that time they need to find a new job. So yes, investments actually are a huge difference, and investments can beat your income later on. So the more you invest, the more it grows, the more the percentage returns, and the faster and faster your investments catch up to your income. So now I'm going to talk about Robinhood and M1. And actually in the description, I'm going to put affiliate links for Robinhood, M1, and Webull. So I'm not here to sell you an audiobook or sell you a course on how to get rich quick. I'm just here to give some useful information to you guys. And this would actually support me a lot. But if you don't want to use it, feel free to not use it. If you enjoyed this video so far, smash that like button, hit the bell notification for more future videos, and let's continue. So let's start off with Robinhood.
So I'm actually using my webcam microphone, so hopefully it's still clear enough. So you can see this is Berkshire Hathaway, and it is the Class A stock. It's a $340,000. It's the most expensive stock in the world. So you can actually do fractional shares. Basically, you can go to dollars, and then you could enter how much you want to buy in this company. So you could buy like $1, $2, $3, $4, and then it will give you a portion. So for example, if I click $10, it'll say, okay, now I own about this number of shares. So for instance, I placed an order and I own about $4.08 of Berkshire Hathaway. And the average cost that I paid per the shares was this, basically. But this was just a fraction. So this is the only amount of equity I own. And then right here, you can see the today's returns, and you can see the total returns too. So this actually lets you buy certain companies of stocks that are really expensive. For example, like let's say Amazon, which is about $2,000 stock. You can buy like a partial shares every single week, and eventually you'll own the whole stock. Berkshire Hathaway, in general, I don't know if you'll be able to own it because it's a very expensive stock as it is. So this is part of my M1 portfolio, actually. This is dividend stocks I invest in. But as you can see, I'm highly diversified. I have utilities, healthcare, consumer, defensive, energy. You can read the whole list. But I also have price targets. Basically, let's say if I contribute like $100 a week, so $15 would be going into this utility section, 15 would be going to healthcare, and whenever it's like under the 15% target, money will be going in. If it's over, like for example, it's 15.3 here, money will not be going in. So I constantly buy shares that are lower, and this happens automatically through M1. And if I click, for example, let's say I click technology. As you can see, this is Microsoft. This is about how much equity is in Microsoft, 212, Apple. And if you see how costly a stock is. So for example, let's say if I click Apple, I own about 0.65% of a share. So this is very important because I can continuously invest a few dollars here and there into Apple, and I still get the same gains of Apple. As you can see, I'm still gaining. So the important part is I don't have to wait until I can hit the price of one share to buy Apple. And if the price keeps going up, then I'm still continuously being invested and not making a greater gap. For instance, being able to afford it if the price keeps going up and up and up.
As you saw from Robinhood and M1, I have fractional shares, which gives me diversification and helps my money keep working for me. So I hope this video taught you not to fear the stock market, and also it does not take a lot of capital in order to invest in the stock market. Yes, it does take a lot of capital to be able to get significant gains to replace your income, for instance, but at least you're beating inflation and you're still constantly getting returns. So you're ensuring a better life for yourself and stability if there's any unforeseen consequences like a job loss, etc. in the future. So tune in every week and you'll see a new video from me. Some topics I think I want to talk about next is passive versus active income, explaining the S&P 500, Dow Industrial, and the NASDAQ, explaining Roth versus traditional IRA accounts, and possibly the differences between dividend investing and growth stock investing. These videos are aimed for new investors, and I hope this gives you some baby steps into the world of investing. And it's actually a very interesting field. So why do I make these videos? Well, I realized that a lot of college students do not know about investing, and I've realized that a lot of family members who've never looked into investing because they hear these horror stories, oh, people lost their money completely, or they don't understand exactly their investments, they actually lose a lot of returns later in life. And the big expenses that you have later in life, for example, medical costs, retirement, college planning for your kids, all of these accounts can be invested. So for example, an HSA, which is also known as a health savings account, you could use for future medical expenses. Roth and traditional IRAs and 401ks can be used for retirement funds. And 529 plan, which is actually a very, very useful plan. So for example, if you're middle class and you want to put your son or daughter in a private school, it's very important to start a 529 plan early. But if you do all these, then you actually ensure a better life for your son or daughter, yourself, and also your health bills later on. But there's many things you have to consider in personal finances before doing any of these. And also, I don't know if you want kids, but yes, these are some things that's very important to know about as early as possible. So for my case, my family didn't really know much about this, so actually I wanted to share this information to you guys. And I know that there's going to be a lot of young people watching this, that this might be very beneficial later on. So think to yourself, how many people have told you about investing in your lifetime? If I'm the first person that talked to you about investing, then at least I'm glad that I had this opportunity to share with you. And I hope that someday you'll also pass on the message to another person. And regardless of whatever happens in the economy, remember, investments in good companies generally always go up. Well, I hope this is helpful, and tune in next week for another video. Bye! Grenade jaw, out! You thought the video was ending. Please subscribe, hit the bell notification one more time, share it with your friends, and I hope you have a great day.